chasing dreams, just like clockwork. Money on my mind, till these fucking thoughts hurt. If you had a product, tell me how hard would you push it? Cause where I was brought up, there ain't much.
All right. Of course, as y'all know, I'm Bobby. This is me and my buds. Today's guest is Mikey. Mikey Dabs It, Mikey Washes. Mikey is not only a hash maker, hash washer, but a big figure in the Colorado hash community and hash scene. You know, Colorado has quite a big hash community and scene.
Absolutely.
In my opinion, it's bigger than like the flower scene or the actual cannabis like industry scene with workers and brands and whatnot. On a community level,
Definitely.
the hash community is huge here. It's dope.
Yeah.
And before we even met, we were following each other on Instagram just because I have a lot of my Instagram connects in the hash community are both legacy market and legal market. One thing that was, pretty cool about you is your name rang bells in both, which a lot of, whether we're talking cannabis or hash or whatever, there's not too many people whose names kind of hit, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Usually
sure.
if you're a grower or a washer or any sort of hash maker, you're kind of big in the legacy scene.
Yeah, you're one or the other kind of thing.
You know what I mean? But not
on
like the retail. But for you, I was hearing your name and seeing your name from both sides.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. So to kind of go to that, I usually like people to kind of give me like a little brief, what got you into cannabis, or if you went straight into hash. Sometimes some of the younger generations are straight into dabbing, but kind of like what got you to. Sorry guys, we just did a fat rip of some of his rosin on this $12,000 piece here. So
blessed off the goddess is what we call it. Shout out to Christian Otis.
But kind of, what got you into cannabis, like on the personal level, like
definitely
your first time smoking, or, I had a back injury and cannabis, whatever that was.
100%.
And then what is like your professional journey, I started bud tending, or I started in a grow. So
definitely,
obviously, touch on where you started, obviously, first heard of you through Snacksland and Good Trees. So,
right. Yeah. I mean, so, I'm from South Carolina. My family used to have a bunch of land out there, so you'd find some beans in a bag and pop them and kind of learn how to do some stuff.
Okay.
Had a mentor. They kind of showed me how to do things in 2010.
So started on the cultivation side.
On the cultivation side. And then I met my wife. She was my girlfriend at the time in high school. We had like this big party out on like 400 acres of land that a homie owned, just inherited through time by his family. And we had some swag, a bag of weed. And that really like put me onto it. So we had started growing plants, but I never smoked anything yet.
Okay.
Then went to the party and kind of smoked something out of like a little spoon bowl, some Reggie weed, some brick weed. Found seeds on that.
How old?
Let's see. This was 2010. So yeah, 2010 is when I started doing that. That was, how old am I? I don't even fucking know at this point. I want to say I was born in 93, so let me do math. I was 17.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Bad. I'm a stoner, guys. But no, so I was 17 years old, just got driver's license and all that kind of stuff. High school football was going down. I was in a private school, so we weren't allowed to smoke weed. So when I smoked weed, I was tripping about it because I was like, I'm going to get drug tested, It ended up being a vibe, though, dude. I got super stoned. Was like tripping out over walking to the house because we smoked in the truck, hotbox the truck, and I'm like actually tripping over grass and stuff. And I remember like falling down and laying on my back and being like so giddy and just enjoying life.
First cannabis highs are like actual
pretty crazy. It's like a 50-50 chance that you get high or you get blitzed, or you don't get high at all, right? So yeah, did that. Woke up the next morning with the homies. We went hunting. Smoked some more weed, and just kind of vibed out on it. Like I really enjoyed the feeling, the effect of it. I had Meniere's disease, which is kind of like a imbalance of my inner ear fluid. Okay. So I kind of have vertigo and nausea spells and stuff like that a lot. That ended up being like medicated through prescriptions and stuff, like pharmaceuticals. I can't talk. Pharmaceuticals. And with that being a thing, I just didn't like pills. I was never somebody that liked to just wake up every morning and have a time set to take a prescription pill, and then also relying on the pharmaceutical industry to supply that. So we really started helping with that. I got through that. Really enjoyed it. Did a couple grow harvest, and then BHO blasting became a thing. So I started running like open cans through tubes from the glass shops, and that was a vibe. Just experimenting, learning things. A couple homies one time came with a lit joint. We got blown up blasting, so the lit joint caught the fumes, and I'm standing there with like gloves with a glass tube and a can running through it.
So those who don't know, BHO blast, it's highly flammable hash making process, usually like live resin.
Live resin.
Which kind of was gonna be one of my questions. So I mean, that's kind of now is better than ever. I'm not gonna say that speak for you that you're a solventless or a rosin maximus, but
I definitely am.
Because I wanted to know if you started solventless, or if it was BHO, or what started your extracting.
Yeah, so it was that BHO, just it being a thing and people not wanting to buy
and this is still weed. South Carolina.
Yeah, this is still South Carolina. People didn't really smoke flower as much during those times, right? So I should probably put that on airplane mode. Let me see. So flower smoking in South Carolina, you smell. With concentrates, you can kind of get rid of the smell faster. Right. So it's like when that caught on, people were like, where do I get the wax? Where do I get the shatters? Where do I get all that kind of stuff? So I started doing that, but after kind of getting blown up, that was when I was like, I don't want to do this anymore.
So you were doing waxes and shatters?
Yeah, I was doing waxes and shatters. I really wasn't doing too much like crystal formation, just because at the time, the pressure that you need, it was like the little pressure cookers that we would use versus like pressure ovens. So trying to keep everything like as small as it could possibly be, because manufacturing out there is insane.
You're not allowed.
Yeah, definitely not allowed. Definitely not allowed. So, and this is all educational purposes. We're making up stories here, right? Yeah. But
allegedly.
Allegedly. So then I think I took like a year off, got into college, and was just kind of doing that. Mm-hmm. And I came out here to Colorado, 2012.
What brought you to Colorado?
Just my dad was in the Air Force. When my dad went for retirement, he had 1 year left. Mm-hmm. So he got stationed in Colorado Springs, and we got to kind of see the mountains and stuff. And
so honestly, not really for the cannabis scene, not for the cannabis, because there was only a medical scene at that time.
Exactly.
You're still like a year out from rec.
But then I kind of stumbled upon cannabis while I was here, which was kind of crazy. Just randomly went to a head shop and was looking at glass and stuff. I remember.
In the Springs?
Yeah, in the Springs.
Okay.
And there's a dude who just smelled like dank. And I was like, dude, if I could get some of that, whatever you smell like. So I remember asking hey, can I get an eighth? And he was like, yeah, dude, I actually have some in my car. So I grabbed some of that, and I was like, damn, Colorado weed's way better than, the East Coast. So I just always plotted to come out here eventually. 2015, I came out here and did dual residency with a friend, got my badge, and that allowed me to kind of work back and forth. So then I was able to fly back and forth from South Carolina to here and just gain a lot more experience in the industry.
What was that job?
So I did trimming to start with. Okay. Trimming worked me into bud tending. Bud tending worked me into growing, because I wanted to understand more of where the flower came from. And trimming's cool and all, but you don't really get to experience the garden like that. Yeah. You're kind of sitting in a chair for 12 hours just knocking it
process.
out. Yeah. So then I got into the garden a little bit more, got to learn how to grow properly under HBS, metal halides, light depths, stuff like that. And eventually that started transitioning into hash washing, so making bubble. So back in 2015 was when bubble started becoming a big thing.
And that was legally? Or?
Yeah, legally. Okay. Yeah, licensed. I had a key badge.
What company was that?
So that, I think what it's called. It's organic something. Organic Elevated or something like that. They don't exist anymore. You know how it is out here.
So just doing some bubble wash?
Yeah.
Or bubble hash?
Just some bubble, simple bubble. They were just grabbing it and pushing it through a med dispo. Mm-hmm. So that was really tight. Never got to wash in a cold room. It was just kind of do it quick with a bunch of ice and send it as fast as you can. 2019 is when I came out here permanently. So me and my wife, after we graduated college, we were like, hey, let's go to Colorado and move. Let's make the jump, put it all in, see how things go. We got pretty much implanted into Colorado Springs because Denver was like really hard to find housing.
For
COVID
sure.
and stuff like that was going crazy. So Colorado Springs, I got out there. I honestly didn't jump straight back into being badged into the industry. I did like apartment maintenance for my apartment I was living at.
Did the Springs have rec then?
No, I was still med then.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, remember it went rec like, I want to say like 2015, 2016. There was like some rec stores. I think Maggie's in Colorado Springs was rec at one point, and then it transitioned to like full on med.
Yeah.
But I got into a place there called Natural Mystic Caregivers. That was my first like badge job since coming back. And they were like, hey, dude, like, you know how to wash bubble and grow and like bud tend. So like all of that previous experience came through in that position.
Oh, wow.
So then I became like store manager, the only bud tender pretty much. And then I ran the grow, which was a 2 flower room, had 4 tables. Yeah. And veg did that and wash bubble. So we had like a doorbell when people would come into the lobby. It would ring a doorbell. The doorbell would be placed in all the rooms. So both grow rooms, veg room, and like the little wash area. So anytime anybody came, I would hear them and I would just stop what I was doing,
crazy.
bud tend for them. And then, just kind of run it up on the EPC side is what we did over there.
Okay.
That kind of transition.
Extended plant count.
Yeah, extended plant count, extended concentrate counts.
Allows you to basically a permit to purchase more than like the standard legal amounts.
Yeah, so instead of 8 grams, you can get like 100 or something like that. And at that time, the limits weren't 8, they were 40. You could get 40 grams of concentrates or 2 ounces of flour off the rip just for being a med patient without an EPC. So yeah, that just kind of gave me a little bit more experience, especially in a new age of doing it. And like COVID times was kind of different. Everybody being masked, not feeling comfortable sometimes when new people come in, having to feel people out on energy. And that really opened me up, I guess, to the energy side of things, kind of understanding like plants, people, how we all use our energy to exist. And that bubble that I was doing there, that's what like revamped my passion in like solventless and hash making, to be honest. I had like some breaks here and there. I was doing it for some homies at their spots, using my experience to teach them how to do things. But it was never like, let's do this commercially. Let's dive full on into this. I love it kind of thing. I was kind of trying to figure out where I wanted to be at in life. So that really like fast tracked me in. And then Sovereign Lab started in 2020. That was the first commercial lab that I ran.
Still doing bubble?
Yeah, bubble. We were doing rosin at that point. So we were doing like...
2018, I feel like, is some of the first time the retail scene started like really seeing rosin.
100%, yeah.
But I mean, it's only recently become like the hot ticket. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Nick T for starting the wave on solventless.
100%.
Nick definitely started that, and really when Nick branded solventless as being like a healthy, more healthy option, I guess you can say, and a little bit more passion goes into the caretaking of prepping rosin and hash. That's when I fell in love, because I've always liked cooking and food and stuff.
And so, same. And like eating clean and eating healthy, and also just, different flavors.
100%.
And that's a big thing about rosin is with, the terpene profiles being preserved and the different flavors with the terpenes. And just the whole process of rosin, I feel, is more akin to like an artisanal experience,
100%,
So like someone like me, I'm like a big like cheese guy, like
same
finding raw cheeses or fancy cheeses or
the aged
so
out.
those, and that's the same thing. There's a smell to them and a taste, and they pair well with other things. So that's kind of how I fell in love with rosin too. Is just like the clean part to it. There's no chemical extraction. It's very natural. But the taste, like I love pairing rosin with food or different juices, or you know what I mean?
Definitely. Following up like a nice steak with like a savory gelato dab or something, that's like food pairing's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, pre and post, get a
100%.
dab in, eat some stuff, and then post. But so you would say you started the rosin kind of around 2020?
Yeah, 2020, 2019, 2020. That's when I got into Sovereign and just cranked out commercially. Low Temp came out with the Osprey then. So we were one of the first labs to get the Osprey and R&D the Osprey, and which is a commercial hash washing machine.
Because it's
a
such
big
a new
steel vessel.
Such a new
It was a new thing, right?
concept and product, and
then people kind of understood that like hash washing is hard on a body. It's paddling a boat for 7 hours, 8 hours, depending on how many washes you're doing, and then weight wise equates to how hard you're going through it.
So this would be a good segue to kind of walk us through like your process.
Yeah, for sure.
Washing, you secure that flour. What's the timeline on getting it frozen, and
for sure. So
top to bottom, what does it look like till it's in the package in these?
Yeah,
these guys here.
Let's go. The Good Trees jar. Shout out to Little Mexico on the design work.
Shout out Little Mexico for sure. Tried to get him on here with you, but he wouldn't answer the phone. So
what? I should have called him before I came over. I could have swooped him.
We'll get him.
But yeah, so the way I start out is I go in the garden during veg stages.
Okay.
So that I can see if they're spraying IPM. Of course, they should be spraying a preventative at that point, unless their grow is like crystal clean and nobody's coming in. From outside measures, it's not like passionate about making sure that garden stays clean from pests, because anybody can bring in bugs, aphids, thrips, spider mites, all do extreme damage to crop and makes it where it's unusable, in my opinion. Some people will try and clean it, hydrogen peroxide, water dips, stuff like that. No. So yeah, I start at veg, I go into flower. As long as you're not spraying IPM in flower stages, we can use it for rosin. If you are spraying IPM in flower stages, people still use it for rosin, but it has this taste to it. It has a different effect to the high. So one, like a lot of times it'll have like a minty taste or an off-putting taste, or it might taste like algae or swamp water in a way. IPM and heavily dosed amounts will do that to hash, because it's what is it called? Systemic. So it can get into the plant, and then the plant will absorb it, and then you end up having trichome heads that contain it in the cell wall or either in the oil. So as you're busting that for rosin, it contaminates.
This is your whole flavor profile.
So my goal is to make sure they're not doing that. If they're not doing that, then we're going to go into the next phase, which is finger test. I'll touch the buds on the plant, larf, top cola, middle section, and that kind of gives me a eye visual estimate of what this plant's going to do for me in hash. If it's like super greasy, for example, slippery, like olive oil on your fingers, it's not going to wash, If it does, it's going to be like 1%, 2%, sometimes even like my worst yield ever was 0.18 off of 50 pounds, which means I got like 7 grams of water hash out of a 50-pound run.
Fire.
Which if you dried that out, that's a fourth of the weight. So we're talking, L's. So if it's sandy and sticky, then I know it's going to wash really well. Okay. And then I'll go into a jar test. So then we'll take 7 grams off the plant. We'll freeze it. I'll put it in a jar. I'll shake it for 30 minutes and I'll let it settle. And then that'll give me an eye visual estimate now of what it does in water. Because even if it does it good on a finger test, it could do bad in water because you have water weight pressure. Water's heavier than anything else. And then you have your agitation amount. So as you're agitating and creating that vortex or that swirl to take the heads off the plant material, you can bust them. The way I like to explain it is like trichome heads, depending on the genetic, have a different thickness in the cuticle. So think of a water balloon, the oils inside. That water balloon thickness can range between a 1 millimeter to like a 5 millimeter. Your GMO, for example, is your 5 mil, has a super thick cuticle. It doesn't want to pop. And like your gelatos and your biscottis and stuff like that, they have a thinner head. So as you get to the point where you've put it into the Osprey or hand wash, so either way you put it into your vessel and then you put ice cold water on top of it. And then you bring that, ideal range is like 32, 35 degrees for your water. You let it soak for 20 minutes and then I'll start agitating. So then I'll put a paddle in it, start washing it, stirring it up.
Now, real quick, to go back to the thinness of the heads. From what I understand, you always want like bigger heads.
Yeah, bigger heads, little necks.
Shout out big heads, little necks. As far as the thick and thin you're kind of talking about like the cell wall.
Yeah, the cell wall.
So do those? I mean, do you use thick and thin? Do you understand? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, what you're saying, like thicker.
Do you
thin?
prefer thicker?
I prefer the I'd say like if I was on that millimeter scale, I want to see like the 2s or the 3s more than the 4s and the 5s.
Right.
1s are usually where you start popping a little bit and losing, yield to the water, like destroying the trichome heads.
Mm-hmm.
But the thinner the head is, the better it is for pressing. The thicker it is, the better it is for washing.
A little bit of a balance.
So you
got to
find that middle
happy
ground.
medium.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
My bad. Go ahead.
No, you're chilling. You're chilling.
So we start agitating with the paddle. That's a stir.
Yep. Or if I'm commercial doing it, I'll turn on the osprey, let that impeller start working a little bit. For me personally, on my first washes, I'll hand paddle lightly, and then I'll like stop after like 15 minutes. Then I'll let it settle. So the settle time is just like you don't agitate it at all. Biomass floats, trichome heads sink, and then you're releasing your valve. Your valve allows you to evacuate all that water containing all those trichome heads into your bags.
Yeah.
Some people have like work bags where they'll put their plant material in, so you don't have to have like a 220 bag or a 190 bag, and that's a micron range. So it'll catch like the bigger like food grade material, like plant matter.
That's your basically your filters.
Your filters pretty much, right?
Yeah.
So your 190 up for me is like your waste bag. You don't want that stuff. It's kind of catching to make sure everything below it is cleaner, which then you get into your 160 range. So your 160 to 189 is going to be your food grade. That usually is like has a more chlorophyll contaminated because it's like a newer head. It's like a super thick head, just kind of generated off the bract, which is the leaf.
Yeah.
So those are more like greener rosin that you see out. Traditionally in this market in Colorado, all of that goes to like gummies because you can hide color, of course, decarbon.
Sometimes even carts.
Yeah, exactly. Some people buff their carts with it a little bit, but then if you see the carts over time, like if they sit at room temperature and age, they'll get like green inside, or they'll start like looking milky in some places.
Right.
So then you go down to your 120. Usually some people pull like 140, 150s. Like Dab Logic does a 150U to 159, which is like that range that you're not green. 120
Just on the cusp.
Yeah. 120 is like your better range. That's usually cart material for most people. And then your 90 to 119 is like your cream of the crop. Those are like the premium heads that were on the plant long enough to just age out properly. It's like the fine wine or the fine whiskey or the aged Wagyu or something like that version of trichome heads. And then you have like the traditional range now, like the most common range, which is 73 to 119 or 73 to 159. And that's what we run personally. That's what I run. Allows you to get like a good A grade, yield for it. Whereas 90U sometimes has its hit or misses. Sometimes 90U only hits like 90 grams on a 50-pound
batch.
Exactly.
Be more expensive to the consumer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then your 45 is your full spec. So once you go past 73, your 45 through 159 is like full spectrum high, more of a high equivalent to smoking like plant material, like a bud or something like that. And then below that, for me, I don't pull a 25 bag because 25 microns is actually small enough to catch like bug shit and dirt.
Plant material.
Yeah. So, I mean, some people will squish that back into product. I won't say any names that I've been and seen, but there are some commercial facilities out here that catch everything and they put it all in. And, that's why the way I see it is you have different chefs, right? You have people that are working at Applebee's that are great chefs, and then you have Chef Ramsay and Rachel Ray. And the goal, at least for us, is to be up there with the higher tier of extractors, doing it the right way, not worrying about the buck more than the people, And I think in time that comes to you, good karma.
For sure. And especially if, the focus is rosin or solventless, because that just goes in with that whole production measure and value and 100%. Why rosin is one of those things because of largely because of like what it's priced at a lot of times, but rosin, the community behind rosin expects like, best of the best. So.
Right. And that's where we do have room for, our higher tier people and then the lower tier, because I feel like the lower tiers that switch from BHO or shatter into rosin.
And if you can be priced at that, anybody who try it, it's not a matter of trying rosin and be like, oh, well, I actually prefer BHO. I mean,
I've heard it. I've heard
Me
it
too,
for sure.
But
I've had some people call me out at some events because I'm educating on rosin. They'll come up behind me. Rosin sucks. I'm like, all right. I mean, to you, bro, that's perfectly fine.
yeah, I mean, I
No,
would
it's
say, I'm a hash fan in general, but for the most part, for me, it's solventless.
Yeah.
And then rosin being my favorite, just for the high, the whole experience. I love all of it. The jars, checking the jars, smelling the jars, whipping it up, smell,
Batter, the terps, all the
hitting it before I whip it, while it's
Yeah.
got some separation to get a different flavor.
Definitely.
Hitting it post whip, comparing those flavors. So
Yeah, homogenization versus not. Those flavors are crazy, right? Especially if you get
Oh,
just
yeah.
straight terps. A lot of people have never smoked straight like rosin terps or BHO terps.
Yeah.
It's so choking. It's so potent.
overpowering.
But yeah, I mean, from there, I just collect all those bags. So I'll rinse them out with RO water, give the hash a good rinse through, pull it till it's almost like a plaster, wet sand consistency on the beach,
Yeah.
and then scoop that onto trays. So I go straight steel trays versus parchment, just because we found that parchment, the silicone, will actually interact with the terpene sometimes.
Yeah.
And it can cause a leach, which we want to avoid any terpene loss. So I go from there straight to a freeze dryer by Harvest Right. So it's just like a vacuum freeze dryer. You put it in, hit your buttons.
It's a very almost like medical grade.
Yeah, it's metal grade for
process
sure.
when you're doing it a clean. That's one thing too. Just from seeing, your process and some of the stuff that you'll speak about, is you're very big about no contaminations.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy.
And it's so easy to do. So
Yeah, I've been called obsessive many times, but I mean, the thing is, the way I look at it is what we're producing is going into our lungs. I don't know, not a lot of
and
people
you're also
understand
producing something that should be marketed as the highest grade,
right?
the most clean,
the top tier like product in the shelf, like the Wagyu beef of concentrates. You know, and in my thing, like a lot of people don't understand that like our lungs are very vulnerable. Super vulnerable to what we put into them, and it's not easy to be on a transplant plant list for lungs. Like lungs aren't just out there. Hearts aren't either, and are any organ. So let's protect our body. This is the vessel we live in. We're a spirit actively, inhabiting this thing for, in the long term goal, right? 100 years. So take care of it. Think about what you're putting into your body and ask questions to the people that are creating what you consume. Like if I go to a restaurant, I'm asking questions. How long is this sitting out? How old is this steak, for example, if I'm ordering from like Texas Roadhouse or something? I don't want some rolls sitting under a hot light since the morning. But with that being a thing, it's beard nets, shoe booties as much as I can, lab coats or like a slick jacket to prevent any plant or contamination. And then I treat it almost like I treat my lab in a level like it's a surgical operating room. I want it to be that clean.
Yeah, that's what I meant by
I don't
like
want
the
people
medical.
coming in. Yeah,
surgical still everything. Very
even my gloves. Like I'll take a box of gloves, I'll pre-clean them sometimes. Like ISO them with 70% ISO, and then RO rinse them and let them dry out. And that's like the gloves I'm using to touch my bags or my equipment or the hash trays, press wise. But yeah, it's all being super clean as much as possible. It's like a box of gloves and a gallon of ISO is what I use every wash. That ensures that we're clean, right? That you don't have any like pre-wash flavor in the next wash either, because sometimes people will just like rinse their bags out, spray it a little bit, rinse it, and then hang them up. You can taste some gelato in a super boof terp. It's a little crazy. But I go from there to pressing. Pressing is when I personally use the 316L food grade surgical stainless steel sheets. So they're 25 micron, just like bags are, like nylon bags.
Right.
But I just dove into a couple of things that made me do that, right? Like in my 13 years now of extraction, nylon is like super susceptible to degradation regarding ISO. So to clean the bags, it will degrade really fast if you don't rinse it properly and dry it properly. The stitches will come undone. Plastic will deteriorate.
So you're getting all that.
Exactly. It's food grade
level.
plastic, but it's still plastic.
Yeah.
And there's no hate on that. It's what we're all used to. It's what we all grew to. It's traditional to press through nylon. But I just kind of stepped out into a different way of doing things myself, which was the steel, right? So I sourced these 25 micron 316L surgical stainless steel or food grade stainless steel. I RO rinse them 99 ISO, RO rinse 99 ISO, RO rinse both sides, and then I 70% ISO and rinse it again.
Clean.
And then I take that, put it inside of an oven that's been cleaned out so that it can, at 250 degrees, so it can like evaporate all of the water that's left into it. And then when I'm ready to press, I'll take my hash, kind of brick it out. So I'll pour hash out of the jar, spread it out, let it grease up. And then I do what's called hashigami, is what I call it, because I used to live in Japan. So I call it like origami for hash.
Okay.
Hashigami, so you use like parchment paper to fold the hash into a brick. So like my plates, I use a pure pressure or a low temp. And they're like either a 4x7 or a 2.5x10 plate. And I make my brick to fit, within a half inch or so of the plates on each side. And then I wrap it in steel. So I'll like place this sheet out, set the brick, wrap it, fold it underneath, create these little anchors, and I'll set it on there and press it out. And that's just my personal way of doing it. With that, I'm kind of reducing any microplastic residuals for that rosin or during that process. People have different strokes for different folks, right? So why we eat from different chefs is why we smoke different hashmakers products.
Right, for sure.
But I think that's what stands me out. That's what makes me a little bit different out here, and kind of my way of doing things is just obsession and innovation, I guess you could say. Asking questions. If you question,
you're a hash artist for sure.
I appreciate it. But we can't get better if we're not asking questions and trying to improve on things.
Hell yeah.
So that's kind of like my career into it. Sovereign to another place, I won't say their name, and then another place, and then now Good Trees. So now we're selling at Good
How'd
Trees.
you get with Good Trees? Was it
Good
Chip or Mexico or?
Both of them, really, mostly Chip, I'd say. But I'd seen Justin doing his thing as always. Justin's always out there in the community, kind of lifting us all up, doing his thing, his little graffiti and all that kind of stuff. It's a vibe, bro. I love art, so that's kind of what put me onto him, is like out there tagging, doing fun graffiti on walls, not vandalism, but in the right way. Rube is a homie, so Rube knew Justin too.
Yeah.
RubeZilla, shout out to him.
He'll
And
be on here.
hell yeah. And then, Izzy's the fam, and Izzy was like, yo, Justin's cool. And when I was at, 3 labs ago, I was processing for Potco, which is like Good Trees is the brand that's kind of like umbrellaed with Potco. I was processing rosin for them, and sometimes things don't work out. We all have different visions and different ways of going about how we want something to work, and I didn't vibe with that company at the time. It's crazy, the story, bro. I was crying in my car because it was just like, it had been such a rough battle over the last year. And Chip comes up to he's picking up some stuff from us, and he jumps in. He's like, "What's up, bro?" And I'm crying. He's just like, "What's going on?" So I kind of vented my story out to him, and he was like, "If there's a way that we can make something work and create something with Good Trees, it's this new brand we're gonna start doing, like a premium brand." I was like, "Let's talk about it." So honestly, from that moment, it was like full send. Let's go. So I jumped in with that. I was running Snacksland at the same time I was running Good Trees, working both labs, 140 hours a week. So I was doing 7 days, 10-hour days type thing, 10 to 12-hour days. And just kind of my goal is to show the community in the industry, hey, you can do it right, and you can be spread thin and do it right. There's no room for cutting corners. You know what I mean? Just be right about it and do it to the full extent. Put the passion behind it. Take care of your people, and you'll always have a good product. So yeah, Good Trees, that's what they're about. So I just dove full on into the Good Trees line, and I think we're doing pretty well to now. We're sold out of rosin at the moment.
It's a good problem.
The jars are pretty tight. Justin's thing is, being from Mexico with the tires, hiding the stuffs in the tires.
The tires. Great jars for sure. Jar appeal for sure.
So it's kind of the vision. I'm from the South. I'm from South Carolina, obviously. So a country boy with big lifted trucks and tires and stuff. So I vibed with that. Yeah. And I used to drive stuff around with tires myself.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
You also brought some stuff from the private lab.
I sure did.
So go ahead and tell me a little bit about some of these. I got some black maple here. Maybe Where did you source these phenos from?
These are pheno hunts. So buying packs, hunting out beans, outdoor, seeing if they hit outdoor. If they hit outdoor, then I'll transition them into an indoor tent. Kind of run it up from there. Perfectly legal out here in Colorado as long as you have your 6 plants or your extended count.
Which is another dope thing about Colorado and the hash community is we're able to, do all of this and it be legal and be able to share and gift each other. And
definitely.
Which one are you the most excited about here? What's your...
Honestly, this grape cream cake. This grape cream cake is a different pheno than anything I've ever seen on the market. It has like a blue raspberry terp, whereas traditionally everything's like ice cream cake, like grape pie terps that comes from grape cream cake.
Yeah.
This one is literally like cracking like the Nerds cluster balls, the blue raspberry. That's what I get off of it every time.
Blue raspberry nerd cluster ball.
Yeah. That one's fire. Black maple's like savory, potent, like some meat terps almost.
Great color to it too.
Yeah, all 73, 159.
Nice sauce layer all over the top.
And the thing about what I do at home and for Good Trees is when we source from the grows, it's never early pull. So traditionally people will pull like day 41 through day 49 to give you that white hash.
Yeah.
White hash is cool, but white hash lacks effect and flavor in my opinion. I'm really not trying to spend a bunch of money on something to be high for 30 minutes. With full term, you get like the full cannabinoids development, you get the full terpene development, and those all create that entourage effect to give you that like proper high that...
Absolutely.
Even though hash makers love hash, we look for almost like flower highs in our hash, if that makes sense.
I mean, I think a hash, except for like the big dab guys, but I think a hash connoisseur, same thing. There's the convenience to it and the flavor to it. That's, with cannabis, I feel like cannabis and then solventless and especially rosin. I guess live resin too, but that's where you're going to have your most flavor, your experience closest to flower. What is this one? Is this SP? What is this one?
So that's Stardog Pie and melted strawberries.
This one is...
Yeah, that one's crazy.
Looks
terps.
special.
Like some Death Star terps. I can smell it over here.
Yeah, crazy.
Can you smell it yet? Yeah. A little cameraman anecdote.
Cherry bear. Cool, man. Well, I think that kind of covers everything that I have.
Definitely.
I appreciate you coming by.
Definitely appreciate you having me, man.
What's up next?
The next thing I think is entering some more competitions. Like you said, I've done license. What I call it is license and legacy. Trying to get a little bit more legacy competitions on the belt. We've got some license competitions coming up here soon. Entering rosin, entering flour, stuff like that. Our edibles and our syrup as well. Just kind of see how it takes off from there. I mean, my goal this year is to collaborate more than to compete. So if I can get into more of these competitions, collaborate with the people that are there, and run that up and show the industry, like, just because I make hash and X person makes hash, we're not enemies, we're homies. Let's take our collective knowledge, put it together and come up with something new. Or, just put good terps out there, collaborative.
Cool events,
Yeah, exactly.
That's another thing about the community. Like, it shouldn't be a little healthy competition is cool.
Yeah, never hurts nobody.
Everyone's bringing, like, a different process, a different flavor, so.
Yeah, what I say is competition breeds success, but collaboration breeds community, so. You kind of look at it both ends. We can compete healthy, but we can collaborate, right?
The hash scene is community out here in Colorado for sure. It's a big one for sure.
I have some collaborations planned for Good Trees this year. I've done some already, with my home stuff. Hashep's he's a homie out of Egypt. He does like a lot of living soil and stuff, and we did a little collaboration where I pressed his stuff through steel. Okay. That was fun. I'll have to get you some of that to try.
Yeah, for sure.
Some rainbow guava, it's like straight rainbow, like starburst, like strawberry Pop-Tart terps. It's crazy.
Love that.
Some fruity stuff for sure. I got like a 2G of it, and I've actually not dabbed all of it, which is crazy because I'm on 3Gs a day type thing.
So I like to keep like a healthy stock because one thing when I started getting into like collecting hash is
Yeah.
Those guys who will post, and it's like, actually,
Horrible.
someone posted something of yours from like 2 years ago.
Yeah,
I forget.
Jeremy. Yep.
Was it Jeremy
Yeah,
710, right?
Jeremy.
Yeah.
Jeremy's the homie.
And see, and I love like shit like that where, you know, they're almost like foodies or food critics or, you know what I mean? But so like I like to preserve some because I want to do that. I've only got like 2 of them from like 710 that are, you know, a couple years old, but I want to, you know, 2-3 years down the line, like, oh, it's good trees.
That's what I do with every company I've
2023, you know, or 24. And so
yeah,
I like when people have that because keep it in the fridge properly, like,
so that's,
break it out and it's fine.
The crazy thing is, Jeremy, that gram he posted, it's never been refrigerated since it was made. So with the steel process,
just
one
the
thing
quality
that
of what you produced.
And what I say is like that 18 by 18 sheet on a 2.5 wide brick, I get 5 times wrap, like a 5 wrap on it.
That's crazy. I didn't know it wasn't refrigerated.
Yeah, so it was
ultra all
filtrated.
still saucy too.
Yeah,
and it was like I think it was like 3 years ago or some shit.
Yep, it was. It was that one was 2021, I think it was. The Super Booth.
That's awesome.
But that steel wrap, it in my opinion, it filters a little bit more fats and lipids out of the rosin, so which makes it more shelf stable.
Keep it moist and
He also has a gram of Jet Lotto from Sovereign that was made in 2020, 2021.
That's dope.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I have one in my drawer at home after bringing. There's like 2 dabs left in it.
Yeah.
It's like pink rosin at this point. Like it went from white to like pink.
For a while, I would give some away, or you know, I'd smoke them down. But now I'm like, if it's a special one or you know something super good or limited drop, and I'm getting down to that little bit, I'm like, all right, this one's going in the reserve. Like
aged terps, bro.
Yeah,
gotta love them. I mean, that's one thing that like 2 labs ago I really like dove into and obsessed over is like aging stuff, and that's where before Piatella came out, I made a thing called Mikey's Melt. It was a cold cure water hash, is what I called it. Because I was doing like research, like, is there anything like this? And Ryan and I, we were talking about it one night. We like got some dinner and got fucked up, got drunk, and I was just like, bro, like if we could just make a room temperature stable water hash that like has a consistency of rosin, that would just be insane. He was like, bro, I've been trying to do it for like 2 years. He's like, I can't get it to happen right now. And I'm like, fuck, dude, I have like access to a plethora of strains on the market. Like I'm just going to start taking little bits of it and seeing what I can develop, right? And I found out that instead of doing the cellophane tech, I would do like a mason jar, like just enough to fit what I was taking out. And then I would leave that at room temperature, vac sealed. So I would vac seal the jar, put it at room temp. I had like a cedar box that I would put it in, and then I would only open it in the dark, and I'd turn on my cell phone light and like whip it. And then I'd do that every 3 months. And on the 6th month, it made like this wet batter that was like
you still got any of this?
I might. Let me check when I get home.
That.
Yeah, let me check when I get home.
I've tried a little bit of Piatella at Tetra one time. The Puffco guys, because they got to connect.
Yeah,
like
Splite does some work. He's the one who like made Piatella, but I think prior to that in the U.S. I did the cold cure water hash, Mikey's Melt.
I would love to try that. I have like a bucket list to go to Columbia and try the Uncle Farms Piatella.
Yeah, dude, they kill it. I've had it myself too. I've had a few different strains from them. Yeah, and it's crazy because like me personally, when I do it, I want it to be a specific type of strain that creates like that 1 mil, 2 mil head, because that will cause you to release the oils a little bit as it cures out. The heads are rupturing, and it makes it more of that wet consistency that's almost rosin batter, without having to add heat to like generate something to happen. You know,
get it tacky.
Yeah, but that was like probably the coolest thing I had developed in a while was like
I would love to try
opening a fat jar, you know, out of your pocket and be like, this is melt. This is like 6-star, bro. But it's rosin. But it's not.
Yeah, let me know. I would love to try that.
Definitely. We'll have to do some dazzle. We have to come through the crib and check it out.
Yeah.
But
and that's the thing too, is there's like, I know some people who could get the Uncle Farm stuff, but like I want to go to Columbia.
And experience that.
Like I don't want to pay and have it shipped.
100%. Because it degrades in the ship too. You know, it's going to dry out. If it's hitting altitude from Columbia, for sure. Yeah. You know, altitude does some crazy stuff to hash. And I think that's why Colorado has such great hash too, you know, because we have our altitude, we have a dry climate that resembles like Afghani, you know, all those different places, like Afghanistan, you know, India. I never
thought about that, honestly, for hash, the climate,
our climate mirrors like what landrace true hash genetics are used to having. So when we find like And it's crazy because if you get like a super good hasher, like a 6 or 7% that does like bubble, if you look through its genetic like library back to where it originated from, 9 times out of 10 it was like Hindu, Afghani landrace that was like made for hashing. So it's kind of dope to see how it's transitioned over, you know, years,
Right.
if not centuries, right at this point. But yeah, it's been pretty dope. I think 2025, the goal is to be the year of melt. You know, make melt great again. It's like,
I love that.
that's
Let's get
gonna
the
be-
hat. Let's get the hoodies.
dude,
Let me
I'm about to
know.
say that's gonna be the new Mikey Dabs It like swag that me and my wife were talking about dropping.
love that.
Some socks, some fucking hats, some hoodies.
I'll
Something,
rock that for
something
sure.
fun. You know, make melt great again.
Oh
But
yeah.
that's kind of the goal, is to like bring back the flags. You know, I think Colorado is really well known for that, for our melt game, and it's kind of slipped here or there. We're kind of pushed more into rosin, whereas like, bro,
It's big. I mean, wherever the money goes, you know. So
yeah, the thing about
Money's
melt
been
is
going there.
it's unadulterated. You know, it hasn't hit heat yet, so you get like the true plant.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I love. My favorite is water hash, but there's not a lot out there on the market that is great. So
100%. It's usually like 4-star.
I'm mostly doing rosin because there are a lot of great options.
100%. Yeah, Colorado's rosin market is insane.
So, but I wish, you know, because the water hash for me is the best. The taste, the high, everything. It's my favorite.
Yeah, a couple of us licensed company homies were talking about it. Like, we're all gonna try and do our little melt drop this year and get some hype up around it again.
Hell yeah.
Strategically planning, right, without doing it.
Heck yeah.
But yeah, man, it's been dope. Appreciate you having me on.
Likewise, man.
Talking
Thank
hash.
you for coming.
Definitely.
Very educational for the people out there. It's one thing I wanted someone like you for these episodes just because of that educational aspect. Just a lot
anytime.
of people hit me up and like, what is that? Or like,
Yeah.
they'll send me some like, what is this? I don't understand, you know, so.
Any questions? If anybody has any questions, you see this, you know, hit me up on Mikey Dabs It, at Mikey Dabs It, or at Mikey Washes It. Any of my followers, anytime they ask a question, I'm responding. I never leave anybody on red.
Love it.
It's my goal to spread education and awareness out here in the community so that we can improve, right? If we all get to that level, I mean, we're unstoppable as an industry. And that's the thing, is like, let's show everybody how long it took to get to that point. That it shouldn't take that long.
Right.
You know, you guys would have like paid attention to the stuff. It's not harmful unless you overdo it, you know, and that's kind of what we're in, right? It's like what we were talking about on the rigs. Sometimes the rigs get you like blitzed.
Yeah.
Like, you definitely shouldn't be operating, you know, commercial equipment or anything like that under those standards. Whereas if there's proper like education out there, you could say, hey dude, like, instead of seeing that jar and being crazy about it and digging into it and slapping a glob on it, you know, do a 0.2 or do a 0.1.
take a
Start
little
small and
taste.
work up.
Yeah.
You know, so
He did a glob pre-show. I did a little 0.2.
I always do globs, right? The Mikey Dab.
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate you.
Definitely appreciate you, bro. Cheers.
Bang,
The big homie.
bang, bang.
Chasing distant dreams, just like clockwork. Money on my mind, tell these fucking thoughts hurt. If you had a product, tell me how hard would you push it? Cause where I was brought up, there ain't much of that good shit.